ladies and gentlemen, let's talk Sonya Blade. My name is Brian of Chamber of the Wraith, and it's been a little while since I've done a White Lotus Dojo episode, hasn't it? Well, today's the day, since Combat League is going to be over pretty soon, and I probably should have started these a little bit sooner because I had actually, well, I figured I should have started sooner, but I didn't think about it until now. So we're just going to hop on in to the practice mode and go over Sonya Blade's 3 competitive variations. But as usual, we are going to be talking about non-string normals, then the strings, then universal specials, then we talk about what each variation brings to the table that is unique. So without further ado, Sonya. And the first next episode is going to be Juggles. Yeah. So we're going to set this up, go to the Special Forces Desert Command. Now, the first thing to know about Sonya Blade is that she has some really good attacks. A lot of really good attacks, in fact. But she has some interesting weaknesses that I will be going into right away here. Let me see. I think I got most of them. Actually, hold on. Did I do Sonya? I don't remember if I did Sonya last. Hold on. Let's see. Shang Tsung, Fujin, Jade, Kodal, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Katana, Scarlet, Baraka, Devora, Aaron Black, and Cassie. So I did not do. So it was just me just seeing things, and then we'll do the hop attacks. So already, you can see, she has a lot here. Just for starters, really. We have... Where is my frame data? Here it is. Yeah, there's my frame data, and I'm going to have auto on and easy crushing blows on as well. Energy burst, 9 frame down 1. It's a true mid. Is -3 on block, but plus 12 on hit. So you get this, you can get your turn back in some way, shape, or form. Her, by the way, her standing 1 is 7 frames, which makes this your go-to punish for things, for combos and things. Rising Stars is her uppercut, 10 frames, has the crushing blow as you expect, and is pretty nasty. The uppercut is -7, but lots of pushback. Then there's Boot Camp. It's a pretty interesting attack. I kind of like trying to pepper this in at the end of combos, because it's plus 31, it's actually plus 1 on block, and plus 31 on hit, so you can just kind of keep doing this a little bit. You can throw this out there, do this on block, and then do something that, it's like a jab or something to catch somebody who's trying to catch you out of this, because it is 18 frames. But here's the kicker, okay? It's her armor break. Now, the pros are is universal. However, why would I ever use this if I got slightly more damage off of an uppercut? Well, you might think, well, maybe the plus frames. Okay, but you gotta understand that Sonya has to still dash in. And that's really only good in the corner. Now you might think, well, what about Juggles? Now that's an idea because all armor breaks reset to a certain point of damage scaling, which is usually the equivalent of 3 hits no matter what. So, if you get this going, you get 188. You get this, it's a little bit harder to land, but you do get 192. So, it's a little bit of effort on either side of the coin, but it is not, I wouldn't say it's terrible, it's just why would you, unless you're in the corner? There's no real need to go for this. Unless you feel like plus 30, the plus 30 at this range is worth it. And there is a variation that might be able to get away with that. Okay, I'm going to turn off Breakaway now. Because next we have Steel Toe Strike. Wait. Oh, it does go into a string. So we're not actually going to do Steel Toe Strike, because that is standing 3, and I should have known better. Then we have Side Boot. This is a 7 frame low, good for stealing your turn back, but it's -5. So don't be throwing this out willy-nilly because you are technically unsafe. Nobody can punish you, but it's definitely not your turn. Damaged boot is 15 frames and sends the opponent flying and is -2 on block, but is not special cancelable, so you're not getting anything off of this. This is just something that you're gonna throw. You're probably never going to see for good reason, but if you want to throw it out there as a surprise just to get some distance, then I probably won't stop you. Spinning General is a sweep, nothing to write home about. It's +28, -2 on block. Low Burst is very similar to Energy Burst, but it does slightly more damage, has slightly more range, and is a low. So I can't hit him with this no matter what, but I can clock him with this as it's a low. And it staggers the opponent back, but remember, it looks very similar, but it's not impossible to detect. So most opponents will probably just block low for pokes anyways, but if for some reason they are, stand blocking, maybe they figured you were going to go for an overhead or something, boop, clock them with that and you got the round. Bootlicker Bash is a short hop bop, 12 frames, -12 on block, but it hurts like hell. Flip Kick, despite its appearances, is an 8 frame off a short hop overhead. However, it's -15 on block, which is hella punishable. As for flawless block data, Energy Burst doesn't change frame data. Rising Stars becomes like -17. Boot Camp doesn't change frame data. Side Boot doesn't change frame data. Damaged Boot doesn't lose frame data. Spinning General doesn't lose frame data. Or does it? I think it might lose a little bit, but not much. No frame data lost off of Low Burst. -17 now off of Bootlicker Bash. And -20 now off of Flip Kick. Now let's talk normals. Hi there! Interjecting really fast because I completely forgot to talk about her wake-up options. I completely forgot to talk about her wake-up options this episode, and I feel really bad about that. However, now's a really good time to mention them, starting with Energy Discharge, which is not that great, actually. It doesn't have the best range. And look, I can't even hit Jax. I think Jax has to, like, sweep and then dash in for it to happen. Yeah, there we go. It's still a mid, despite how it looks, and definitely not one of the best invincible wake-up attacks in the game, because it's got such a low hurt box that you could short hop and punish no problem. And as you saw, Jax has to dash in order to get hit by it, really. So this is really for punishing those overly eager opponents. Then we have Backflip Kick, which is similar to Cassie Cage's, but doesn't have Sonya back up. So she does it and still has the closeness to kind of go in for combos, but she doesn't get any distance, so if the opponent were to block this, she's in trouble. So you need to be wary of your wake-up options here. Her wake-ups aren't the greatest, and that's probably her only weakness. Now back to Past Me, who inexplicably forgot about these attacks. So I just need to see if I'm missing anything. I don't think I am, and I didn't tag any premature strings, so I should be okay. First up is Target Acquired. A quick high that knocks the opponent down and leaves her +30 on hit. The high is 7 frames, but is -5. I forgot to turn it back to normal block. The full string itself, you can use as a stagger because there's a 6 frame in there, and it leaves you at -7. Punishable. However, while there's 2 highs in there, the third hit is a mid and -3. And remember, it knocks down. So if you mistime your punish, which is about 13 frames, there seems to be about 13 frames of recovery there. So if you miss it, which I can't exactly blame you if you're a little bit slower on the reactions, but because it's a double high, if you miss it, you deserve to get punched with a quick knockdown and Sonya back in your face. At ease has a sneaky low in there and ends a mid. This does considerably more damage than target acquired and is a really good ender for strings. An easy 23% off of a 7-frame punish. And of course, if I amplify,
enough sparring.
I get 25%, at least in theory. Now, that is not all. You have to keep in mind, though, that the low is -7 as well, and the full string ends in -5, and can be a little bit of a bastard to deal with if the opponent is, shall we say, quick on the opportunities to try and capitalize. So, I'm not entirely sure, but I believe some opponents might be able to exploit the gap between, a gap between the second and third part of At Ease. Then there's Overwatch. This comes off of a 9-frame high, which has pretty good range and is -4. So it's actually slightly safer than the first string in target acquired. There's a sneaky overhead in there, and if you get hit with the overhead, it's a conversion into launch. We'll talk about that crushing blow later, because that is another thing we need to talk about. I forgot we were talking about crushing blows, but with Sonya, it's all in her special moves. Anyway, and you might think, okay, it's an overhead, I'll just block high, especially since it's -9, and then if they overcommit entirely, it's -14, aka, hello, it's launch time. No, not that simple. Because smart Sonyas will keep the pressure on you because this string has a native 50-50 shoot and scoot, which has a 17-frame low, does decent damage when combined. It doesn't do as much damage as this string, not only because the string does more damage, but you also get the damage off of it. You get damage off of it in confirms. But you can confirm this into certain special moves in order to make it worth it. You can only really convert it into energy rings or into leg grabs, but that's still pretty good damage, and you can keep close to the opponent. So I would be extremely careful with this. Frontal Assault, this should be called full Frontal Assault considering the input. Oh, by the way, Shoot Scoot is -7, so barely punishable for most of the cast, and some of the cast can't even punish her from this. Whereas, again, Overwatch, if they overcommit, can be up to -14. Frontal Assault is mostly a dial-up. In the third portion, if you have to press 2 twice. So, that looks like a pretty snazzy way to end a combo. However,
Wardrobe malfunction?
oh, that was a very odd thing to say. However, it's a little bit tricky to land off of certain things, but canceling the string into a special move is almost always going to net you more damage than the full string if you get the full thing, especially if you amplify the astral. See, that's 272 versus... That doesn't catch, so it has to be astral. There you go, 290. And then you can get over 30% if you decide to meter burn. Then we have, but here's the thing about full frontal assault. The second hit doesn't come out. So you can kind of keep the pressure up with this string, but it's -9 for a high off of the 2, and the second hit there is also -9. So I wouldn't recommend just throwing this out willy-nilly, but if you got a combo going and don't really have the meter to go for anything else, I don't see why not, just to spice things up a little. It doesn't hurt. Well, it does hurt, but it hurts the opponent. Under Siege comes off of a mid, an 11-frame mid, that knocks low. Sonya's only minus 12 off of this, but does relatively decent damage. However, the back 2 is minus 3, the second part of the string is minus 7, and the full string is minus 20. Now here's the kicker about that. Here is the kicker about that. I just need to remember to set it to be Jax I'm playing as. So watch this. I can actually get a punish off of this. So I can make Sonya eat her breakfast for doing that. And, of course, if she goes for this, I can get a punish of any kind that I want. See what I mean? Or... yeah, there it is. There is much risk is the thing that you can say. But there's a lot of risk associated with this string. However, there isn't a whole lot of reward either, because if you do this full string, you only get plus 12 and about 10% damage. If the opponent successfully blocks the whole thing, or doesn't even bother and interrupts the gap, you're gonna get hurt. Like, Jax just doing gotcha grab off of that gets Sonya more damage. Then, of course, there's Hua, which, as you can see, is the overhead variant, which leaves the opponent at which leaves Sonya at plus 43. 2 dashes and she's back in your face. However, there's another problem with this. Commit to the full string, she's minus 2. So she's safe. This seems like a pretty good option. But remember, there's still a hella interruptible gap there because that overhead is 25 frames. And what's more, she can fake you out. But here's the problem. The fake out is minus 31. It's so slow. I'm actually reasonably sure that I can beam Jax. I'm actually reasonably sure I can beam you with Thumper with Jax from this. Let me just make sure that I'm not talking out of my ass. Okay. Oh, maybe actually. I might actually be able to punish Sonya with Thumper off of this. It's, yeah, I got it now. So watch this. On reversal, I punished with one of Jax's slowest special moves in the game. That is not even mentioning crushing blow potential. Sonya tried to be plus 43 and do about 7%. I walked out of there with less than 1% of my health gone and did almost. Here's the crazy thing, because Sonya falls into a category of characters where she has 95% of the opponent's health. 95% of an opponent's standard health. But off of this, I did over 30%. I did almost a third of her health just off of that. And what's more, I'm actually going to give Train to both, because if I do this, I can reset the neutral. I can set it back to 0, and Jax with reset neutral can be terrifying. Or again, just do this string and I'm plus 19 and in your face. Just want to see what's my most damaging option there. I think it's this one. Yeah, so again, just super easy punishes off of that. If you are a burgeoning Sonya player and want to use her, stay away from Under Siege and Hua, unless you know your opponent's basically asleep at the wheel, because otherwise, the opponent is going to be able to just say, nope, I'm going to hit you out of that. No backup is much better as far as strings go. The only caveat is that it knocks the opponent back full screen, which is a bit of an issue because, again, Sonya likes to be up close most of the time. But in some situations, this can actually be advantageous because Sonya's zoning isn't actually awful. It's just that she prefers being in your face. So, it's not awful, but it's not something I would recommend using to end strings unless you need that distance against characters that really don't do that well at range, like Jax or even Shao Kahn. Then there's Vendette, which is what I thought Standing 3 did not convert into, but it actually does. There's a very cheeky overhead at the end there, and here's the thing about that. So you might think, oh, I do the full string if they're blocking low, and then all of a sudden, bada bing, bada boom, they're on their ass. You would think. But again, here's the thing. I dialed in the full string and it didn't come out. I could go for low if I see that the opponent has blocked, but Sonya doesn't have any native overhead special moves that she can cancel into. So Vendette is the definition of false mix, because I can't actually make the fourth hit come out. Although what's funny is that this is a high. Okay? This is a high. Kind of looks like a mid, but then again, so is this, right? It's no big deal. That second hit was a mid. It's like this was in reverse. I don't know. I just thought it was really funny. Anyway, on to the next set of strings. Because, yes, we have more. We have more to talk about. Oh, we have 3 more. Perfect. Going rogue starts with the low, ends with the low. And while you can't special cancel it, on the second hit, you can go for the other low, which is her special move. Which is one of her special moves, alongside ass whooping or what have you. However, last troll knocks the opponent back, is plus 20 and does decent damage, but is not special cancelable until the second hit. Well, correction. It's not special cancelable on the third hit. See what I mean? So it's not great, but at least these strings are... I was mistaken. Going rogue is minus 13. Be careful with going rogue. But last patrol is something you could consider. However... Oops. Forgot about this. Oops. Come on. Why did you not come out? There we go. Okay, so I got block roll. No uppercut. No poke. Trade on the poke. So I can trade, or it looks like I can actually interrupt that gap. And then let Sonya be in some serious trouble. But that's not the last string. The last string is Decisive Victory. This is a pretty tricky string to deal with, because this restands the opponent, so it's actually not bad for ending juggle combos, resetting the neutral right within throw range, which is extremely dangerous in Mortal Kombat 11, and because you're on the ground, you can't break away. Meaning that if you were almost a breakaway and you were confident that you were going to be able to break out of this combo by the time your bar filled up, they could just do this. Sorry, you're out of luck. Now you're in range of more ass whooping. However, there is an ender to Decisive Victory, where you gotta mash the hell out of 2 until you get this to come out. Sometimes you don't even get it because you didn't mash it hard enough. But you mash it hard enough and you get 277. How much damage do we get off of a standard conversion? No crushing blows, nothing, just this. Almost 33%. that is a lot. And hell, even if we did this dial-in,
Wardrobe malfunction.
we have almost the same amount of damage, but ridiculously easy. Look, I mashed at the same rate and I didn't even get that. So, I mashed that and I didn't get it out even. So, decisive victory is one of those things that unless you get it just right, it's hardly worth even trying. Now let's talk specials. So, let's start with her standard projectile energy rings. This is the only special move that she retains from her classic arsenal. It's a quick projectile that hits high and does decent damage. But, if you amplify it, you get a mid that knocks down. But here's the kicker. If only the mid hits on its own. Only the mid. Nothing else, just the mid. And I forgot to do flawless block things for the strings. So, give me a minute actually. Do real quick. Nothing to write home about. Just trying to think if there's... Oh yeah, here's the thing about this string. The full thing is flawless blockable. Or flawless blockable again. And look, I'm even less safe. Fully flawless blockable across the board there too. So a lot of the strings I mentioned that you shouldn't be doing are also flawless blockable, not by coincidence. So keep that in mind. Alright, that's enough with the flawless block things. I do apologize for that. I completely forgot to mention it, but anyhow. So, let's say Sonya's just blasting rings. Just blasting rings wanting to keep you out. But you know the strat of duck, walk, being patient, duck, walk. But then she has meter. And then she realizes, oh shit, he's gonna go for it again. You don't see that coming, you just ate 24% damage because that is one of her crushing blow requirements. If just the second ring hits on its own, Sonya gets a crushing blow, and it hurts. 24% off of a single projectile, sending you back full screen. That is demoralizing sometimes. Air energy rings is very similar, except they're both highs. It's just the second projectile is a little bit bigger. Now, this also has a crushing blow, but it requires that you use this to end a combo 5 hits or greater. So, bam! Easy peasy, 38% on most of the cast. No problem. And look, you're back at full screen, which means I can pepper you with more of these things. Which means another 24%, and that leaves you at approximately 40% of your health off of projectiles. That is scary, so you need to be extremely careful with that. Sonya Blade's only non-crushing blow, or only universal special move without a crushing blow is Ass Whoopin'. It's a 17 frame mid that leaves her at +5 and knocks the opponent down. And this is really good, especially in the corner. Especially if Sonya's the one in the corner. Because now, she has you in the corner. And if there's somewhere you do not want to be against Sonya Blade, it is with her dominating you in the corner. No, not in that way, guys. Get your heads out of the gutter. Anyway, so that seems pretty dangerous.
Enough sparring.
Then for 1 bar, you get a little extra damage as well, and some distance, which means more zoning. So what you often will see Sonya players do is they'll end their combos with Ash Whoopin', just for really good meterless damage. Or, if they get the meter burn,
Wardrobe malfunction.
bada bam, look at that. We're 35% almost, and again, Sonya's in the corner. From mid-screen, might I add. The corner carry of Ass Whoopin' is not to be underestimated. Then there's air control, which requires that Jax be jumping. So, oh, actually before I forget, Like standard projectiles, these things are not safe up close, but they get safer as you get closer to as you get further from the opponent. However, don't be throwing these from the air, because you're not going to be getting much of anything. Ass whooping is -11, so if you mistime this, you are in for a world of hurt. Now let's talk about air control. Okay. This, as you might expect, is an anti-air attack. It's technically unblockable, but because it only hits anti-air, it only hits if your opponent's feet are off the ground. You don't really have to worry too much about that. You can also amplify it. Now, here's the thing. That's not quite the requirement for it. It's not quite like other air grabs where it just has to hit by itself. It actually has to counter or punish an aerial attack in order for it to crush your blow. But once it does, high damage launcher, baby. Look at that, 40% for one bar and one crushing blow in the same avenue. Youch. And now for basically the opposite. We have Leg Breaker. This is something you're going to see a lot of Sonya's pepper into a lot of their more dangerous swings. They may even go for this if they anticipate an overhead, because at least if they do this, they are -19, but at least they can interrupt a flawless block gap potentially. And if the opponent stand blocks, all the better, because if the opponent is not in block stun and is stand blocking, crushing blow on amplify for 30%. And what's really funny is that some of Sonya's attacks seem to leave the opponent in what you would presume is block stun, but it actually isn't. So opponents might not expect that. They might be thinking, oh, I blocked that. But you didn't, because you didn't anticipate this, and I get 30% for that. And even if I don't have the crushing blow, I get 130. I get about the same damage as a throw, which is not bad at all. Now let's talk variations. First up is Tournament Variation 1. Marching, or No Holds Barred. This is a very traditional Sonya with counters, parries, and aerial attacks galore. First up is an air normal. Normally, characters only have 3 air normals. A 50 damage really fast air-to-air, or just generally fast aerial attack. The usually slightly slower or slightly more aerial 70 damage conversion in the air, but Sonya's in particular is really good for hitting on the ground, as you've seen, or a jump kick, because jump kick is the same across both buttons. However, Sonya gets a 4th jumping normal. She gets marching orders, which looks pretty decent. It combines the damage of a kicking normal, of a jump kick, with the combo ability of a punch normal. Slight problem. If I just do this, that's all I did. That's the only alteration I made from this combo is which jumping normal I used. And I get 3% more damage from the health bar. I get 30 more damage. I get the equivalent of a standing 2 extra, unscaled. So, what's the big deal? Why is it like that? Well, that's because it doesn't scale nearly as harshly. It basically scales as harshly as 2 jump-in normals at the same time. That's why it's 92.5 instead of maybe 97.5. If I can find a good example of this, which should be... I'm trying to think of like a really good example. Maybe this will work. That's kind of close. That's the same basic idea, because it only scales by a small amount, but this scales by a moderate amount And because it scales by a moderate amount twice, it basically becomes a really rough scaling. So not worth it. Unless you're anticipating armor and kind of want to try and break it. And even then, don't bother. Next, we have low counter and high counter. And in order to do this, I have to, of course, set up two different attacks. So, I have my overhead, and now I have my low. Both map to different directions of the right stick in order to get them both to come out. This is a very reliable way for me to show things. Now, low counter does exactly what you would expect. Counter, a low attack. And hurt like hell in the process. If I amplify it, I get 21% damage. Youch! Pretty good reward if you manage to get a good read off, and being 7 frames is not bad for a special move. And then there's standing counter, which does the same damage as a throw and side switches. And then, let's suppose you amplify. I'm usually pretty, side note, I'm usually pretty bad with parries, so this might take a little while. There we go.
Target down.
Look at that. It's only like 1% less overall, so you get throw damage to 20% off of a parry, or you get, slightly above throw damage to 21% off of a parry. Now here's the extra kicker. Both of these have crushing blows that complement each other. If you land 2 low counters at any point during the match, the next standing counter that you land gets you damage, gets you 20%. It's basically a free amplify, which can then be amplified for even more damage. And the opposite is true for low counter as well. If you get 2 standing counters, which by the way, a crushing blow counter, standing counter will actually count. A lot of the times I've said that word, my goodness. Then it doesn't show you, but you got 21% off the cuff there. Oh. And then you get 270 damage. You get a lot of damage off of both of these counters. If you guess wrong enough, Sonya can take away half of your health with just counters throughout the course of a fight, if she reads you properly. And the nice thing is, or one of the nasty things is, this actually gives some of her really obscure strings a reason for you to use them. Because if they block that and they think they could get their turn back, no you won't, because I just countered you. I punished you for trying to punish me. That sort of thing. Finally, we have Air Ops Drop, which I'll just represent off of one of these. Okay, close enough. It's an air throw. It does pretty decent damage on its own. It looks like it does about 10% damage. I'm gonna double check. Okay, so it's 120, so it's actually not bad. And it has a crushing blow of its own. If it lands on its own, unlike air control, which has to counter or punish a jumping attack. But if Air Ops Drop just lands on its own, like Scorpion's air throw, you get 21%. Not bad at all. That is actually really nice damage for just a single, really quick punish. Catch him with that. But that's not the main reason why you want to use Ops Drop, my friends. No, no, no. You can use it to extend combos. Here's a really basic example. Hang on. I even used the armor break in the middle just because I couldn't. Look, 30%. But let's do it again. It's a little bit tricky to land the second one for me. But look at that. I even dropped and I got 32%. This hurts a lot. But if you're not careful... Again, for some reason I can never seem to get that second one. But if you let Sonya touch you and she has 2 bars in this variation, she can really bring the pain. And of course, damage scaling or gravity scaling is an issue because it means some of your conversions are not going to work. But that's one of the few times I would actually recommend going for that string, because it means that you get a really nice ender, build up half of your bar back, and knock the opponent away from you at the same time. It's actually a really nice tool overall. Now let's talk variation 2. Believe it or not, Sonya Blade doesn't have anything that is 2 slots here, I don't think. Everything here is 1 slot. First off, we gotta talk about energy rings charge cancel. So far, it doesn't look like it does much, but you have to amplify it. Which adds a little extra damage. If you let it rock, the opponent might not be expecting you to let it rock fully, and it'll reset the hit situation, meaning that the mid-ring will hit by itself, and you got yourself a crushing blow. But here's the kicker. If I'm willing to spend the bar, I can dash cancel and be left optimally at like -5 in some cases. It's ridiculous how good you can get these. That wasn't the best one, but -11. Knock it down. -11, -12 in that range I can get, but you can get it a lot faster if you're faster with your dashes. Then there's air energy rings, which I now have a downwards amplifier, allowing me to catch you with mid-air to surface energy rings. The range isn't perfect. It has actually slightly less range than Sub-Zero's Ice Axe, but this can still be pretty dangerous if the opponent thinks that they have a free dash in because you missed, say, your instant air energy rings, for instance. Then we have Cat Orbital Drop. This drops a turret on your opponent's head. But here's the kicker. Its ranges are quite interesting. Close Cat Drop is just behind Sonya. Normal is just in front, and far is a little further. And then there's very far, because the shockwave sometimes hits, sometimes doesn't. And there's actually 2 different hitboxes on this thing. There's a mid that knocks down, or an overhead that knocks down very closely. So, while you're not comboing into this thing, you have overhead projectiles. Or at the very least, you have a potential for overhead projectiles. Especially if you're particularly good with knocking the opponent back with, say, this, and then drop a turret on their head, and then drop a turret on their head, and then drop a turret on their head, and then throw out an energy ring. They're not expecting to charge, and boom! Trouble is ahead. This is supposed to be the zoning variation of Sonya Blade. And she isn't about to let you forget that. Not for one single solitary second. Now let's talk about variation. Ten Hut is all about the turret. And technically the turret is 2 slots, but a lot like the Death Spear combo, which for Scorpion, which requires another move to be attached to it, Death Spin, in order to work. Some of the Cat Turret's requirements, or some of the Cat Turret's attacks, require another ability attached to it. Which, at that point, I really don't understand what's the point, because I think the only moves you get without this are Detonate Cat and Cat Tantrum, and that's it? Again, it's kind of like Death Spin and the Death Spear combos. Why did you join them together like that? I mean, theming-wise it makes sense, but at that point you might as well have made the turret a 3-slot variation thing. Anyway, Summon Cat takes 66 frames to come on down, and now the turret is active. So what can you do with the turret? Shoot, of course. And of course get some zoning going. However, that's not all the turret is good for. At close range, it explodes and knocks the opponent back and down. So, for situations like in the corner, for instance, my wave dashes are not the best, so please forgive me for that. I can do something like that and keep the opponent knocked down. Let's try it again. And now that they're down on their ass, I'm back in their face and can continue enforcing pressure. And then there's Cat Tantrum, which is an overhead leap that destroys the turret, but you get a decent amount of damage off of it. And you're plus 24, so it doesn't hurt either. Plus, there's a pretty neat brutality attached to this thing. That is basically Sonya Blade in a nutshell. She is a lean, mean killing machine with all kinds of nasty tricks. And finally, we get to talk about Die Already! A 13-frame Fatal Blow. One of the fastest in the game with really good range. This is a great way to close the gap and steal around from an opponent that might not be expecting you to throw out a Fatal Blow. Or, a good way to end combos if you want a high damage ender. In Variation 1, you can get over 50% in some cases. Youch. So, that's basic. Oh, and actually, before I forget that. No, I'm not going to quote Slipknot. Shut up. Anyways, real quick, I just wanted to very quickly mention exactly what these were on block, because I forgot to. So I'm going to do hold, or alt. So it takes a while, but the opponent is in pretty dire straits there. The overhead is minus 22, at least at first glance. Nope, it straight up is minus 20, so space this out properly, otherwise you're going to be in big trouble. Look at that, at its safest it's still minus 12, but look, we're full screen. So I can start throwing projectiles out. Which again, being projectiles, allows me to stay safe, but you gotta be careful when you're throwing out your projectiles, because they're a lot less safe. So, bear that in mind. Oh, and I almost forgot to talk about her throws, because she doesn't have throw crushing blows, but these are just mean. Don't forget to be awesome, my friends, and I'll see you guys on the other side.